जय भीम, जय मल्लिवासी, जय भारत, जय संविधान. Myself, Ulpesh Yadav from MNT News Network. Thank you for joining this important discussion on the contribution of Mallivasi Bahujans to India's development. This is our today's topic, the contribution of Bahujans to India's development. Our speaker is Mallivasi P.S. Kamble, who is economist and social thinker from Maharashtra. So let us discuss on this important discussion. Welcome you, sir, on MNT News Network. Jai Bhim, Jai Mallivasi.
Okay, thank you very much for organizing discussion on this very important topic. I'm very much thankful to audience for joining online. First of all, talking about this topic, just I will discuss the concept of what Bahujans is and how it contributes or expected to contribute to the development of India. On the one hand, I'm going to explain what the term Bahujan means. And on the other hand, what the concept of development is there. And thirdly, how Bahujans are going to contribute to the development of India. These are some of the things that I will try to place before you first of all. Now, what is meant by Bahujans? Bahujans is a group of number of social groups that includes scheduled castes, SC, scheduled tribes, ST, OBCs, other backward classes, Muslims and minorities. That is SC, ST, OBC, Muslim and minorities. The combination or consolidation of this group is known as Bahujans. Now, what is meant by development and prominently India's development? Development is the income generated in the economy, the output and production which is produced in the economy, which is called as development, and it is measured in terms of gross domestic product GDP, national income, that is net national income or product, and per capita income. These are some of the indicators those enable us in measuring development of any economy. In talking about India's development means how the GDP of India or per capita income of India or national income of India is being growing and how it is being contributed by different sections of the society, social groups in the society, which contributes to the GDP of India or growth and development of India. So it is therefore, on the one hand, this concept is, and on the other hand, the development concept. And we measure development of India in terms of gross domestic product, net domestic product, and per capita income. Now, here the point is how this social group comprising of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities, Muslims, they contribute to the growth and development of India. Now, for this, I am trying to place some data that will support our analysis. The data is available for 2020-23. Gross domestic product, which is closely associated with the concept of gross value added. That is GDP and GVA, that is gross domestic product, and gross value added, more or less the same. Those are synonymous. So when we look at, it is found that GDP of any country or gross value added of any country is contributed by three prominent sectors, three productive sectors. One is agriculture, another is industry, and third is service sector. The sum totality of contribution of agriculture, industry and service sector that gives us gross domestic product and gross domestic product of India. And what is the share or what are the proportions or percentages of the contributions of these communities, that is Bahujan community, Bahujan Samaj, that is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, Muslim minorities, they are contributing. That is the concept, that is the idea of contribution of Bahujans to the India's development or development of India. So what is the present scenario? Whatever the data which is available for me, whatever statistical information which is available with me, that shows that this community of Bahujans comprising of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, Muslim minorities, their share or their involvement is prominently in agriculture and allied activities. And in the total GDP of India, in the total national income of India, agriculture is contributing 18% share. And 80% share is contributed by agriculture, allied activities, and majority of the Bahujans, that is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities, they are involved in agriculture. So through agriculture, Bahujan community, Bahujan Samaj is contributing to the development of India, that is to the GDP of India, to the national income of India. Again, one more thing that I want to place before you is that, so far as when GDP growth takes place, production of goods and services takes place, employment is generated. And that employment is basically divided into two types or two categories. One is known as private sector, another is known as public sector. It is also divided into formal sector and informal sector, that is organized sector and unorganized sector. So when we talk about public sector, private sector contribution to the employment generation and consequently growth and development of India, it is found that 90% employment is provided by private sector and only 10% employment is provided by public sector or government sector. That is, the contribution of private sector employment to the GDP of India and contribution of public sector employment to the GDP of India, that differs. And private sector is a dominant, prominent sector so far as employment generation is concerned. In the same way, this further we can break up into formal sector, informal sector, that is organized sector and unorganized sector. They have their different features and peculiarities. And when it is found that 90% informal sector, in which majority of the communities included in Bahujans are involved, and in the 10%, we can say public sector, we can say formal or organized employment, only 10% population is employed. Again, in the private sector also, if we take into account regular salaried people, their salaries are taking place regularly. If it is found that, we will get an idea that in the private sector, salaried employment, participation of OBCs is 4%, scheduled caste is 2%, and scheduled tribes is 1%. That is, in private sector salaried, participation of Bahujans is very meager and insignificant. And participation of others, we can say upper caste, we can say advanced community, non-Bahujan community, we can say, their contribution is higher and greater. So participation of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs and minorities in the formal employment in private sector is very less, in which OBCs represent 4%, scheduled castes represent 2%, and scheduled tribes represent 1%. That is, Bahujans, through their participation in agriculture and allied activities, through private sector and not public sector, through non-organized or informal sector, not organized sector, they are contributing to the growth and development of Indian economy, that is development of Indian economy. Thing is that share of agriculture in development is less, it is just 18%. Share of formal employment is less, it is just 10%. And share of private sector is higher, but private sector salaried employment is very lesser, and in which participation of those communities which are included in Bahujans or Bahujan Samaj, they are insignificant and meager. Point is that so far as population is concerned, they are higher and greater, but so far as their contribution is concerned, it is in prominently agriculture and allied activities, prominently in private sector and prominently in informal sector. In informal sector, rates of wages and salaries are lesser and inadequate, no social security benefits, no surety of the employment, no any compensation and social security benefits. These are some of the weaknesses and consequences that we found in the case of private sector, informal private sector, and employment in salaried employment that is there. As a result, what is happening? As a result, inequalities are increasing. Of the total national income, of the total national wealth, the share of distributed among the Bahujan community, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minority, Muslim, is insignificant. It is lesser. Population is higher. They are able and desire and willing to work and contribute to the growth and development. But the favorable and conducive environment which is required, it is not available. It is not there. So the contribution of Bahujans to the development of India is in crisis. It is in insignificant quantum. It is meager. Population is higher, but the opportunities they get to contribute to the development are prominently in private sector, prominently in informal sector, prominently in non-salaried sector, and consequently, they are very meagerly, very insignificantly contributing to the development of India. Now, second thing that I want to discuss before is that the economic history of the world tells us that industry plays a very important role. Manufacturing sector plays a very important role. Industry sector is a decisive factor so far as development of any country. And it is found that when industrial revolution took place in European countries, first it took place in England, UK, and later it spread all over the European countries. And that realized rapid industrial development in England along with the European countries. First, they emerged out as industrially developed countries and later on as economically developed countries. This industrial development effort, further it spread across the countries in the globe, and the countries like America, England, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, they first industrialized, then emerged out as industrially developed countries, and then they contributed and emerged out as economically developed countries, economically advanced countries. At this moment, the share of industry sector, especially manufacturing sector, in the GDP of India, gross domestic product of India, is just 18%. More than 50% share of the GDP or development of India is contributed by service sector or tertiary sector. In this backdrop, it is of crucial importance to analyze what is the participation of these Bahujans in the industry sector, in the manufacturing sector, which plays a very crucial and important role so far as growth and development of India is concerned. And therefore, I am trying to place before you how the manufacturing sector is represented by the Bahujans comprising of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs and minorities. Now, I have some data, and data is prominently related to scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. All communities or OBCs, minorities, Muslim, relating to them, data is not available. But whatever is available, I should place before the audience so they can get an idea what is the picture of the contributions of Bahujans so far as growth and development of Indian economy, especially through the industry sector or manufacturing sector. Already, I have tried to place before you how the agriculture is working and how agricultural involvement is dominated and prominated so far as the Bahujans is concerned, and their contribution to the agriculture, their contribution to the development through agriculture, their contribution to the informal employment, private sector, all those things already I have tried to place before you. So how industry is working and how industry is being represented, that is of crucial importance, which is necessary to be discussed. Now, in the manufacturing sector, in the industry sector, enterprises play a very important role. And in enterprises, especially if private sector is taken into account, in the private sector, in 1990, the enterprises owned by scheduled caste was only 10%, 9.85%. And the enterprises owned by scheduled tribes is only 3%. And when we try to take into account the latest data tells us that scheduled caste have owned 11%, that is 11.40% share of private sector enterprises, and scheduled tribe have owned only 5.4% percentage of share of private enterprises or enterprises. This means that only 11% and 5% is a representation of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes so far as the participation in enterprises is concerned. Again, a further step to analyze and examine how they are contributing to the growth and development of industry sector in general and GDP in particular, it is found that prominently in all enterprises, contribution of owned enterprises by scheduled caste is only 12.45%. For scheduled tribes, it is 4.10%. For OBCs, it is 49.72%. And for all others, it is 32.95%. That is, the enterprises owned by scheduled caste is 12% and scheduled tribes is 4%. For OBCs, it is comparatively better. Again, in these enterprises, micro enterprises is dominated. It is 42.48% for SCs. For scheduled tribes, it is just 4%. And for OBCs, it is better, it is 50%. Small enterprises owned by the scheduled caste is 5.50%, and scheduled tribes it is only 1.65%. And for OBCs, it is 30%. For medium enterprises, no ownership of enterprises by scheduled caste. In the case of scheduled tribes, only it is 1%, and for OBCs, it is 23.85%. This means that participation or the ownership of enterprises for scheduled caste is just only 12%. For scheduled tribes, only it is 4%, and obesity, it is better, it is 50%. For micro enterprises, it is 12% for scheduled caste, 4% for scheduled tribes, and for obesity, it is 50%. For medium enterprises, for SC 0, scheduled tribe 1%, and OBCs 23.85%. So this reveals that participation of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes in the ownership of enterprises or ownership of enterprises is very meager, less than 15%, 12% like that. And it is very lesser and meager for scheduled tribes. And for OBCs, it is comparatively better. So in industry sector in general, manufacturing sector in particular, and prominently ownership of enterprises, they are very meagerly representing, very insignificantly representing, and consequently their contribution to the industry sector and their contribution to GDP is lesser and insignificant, that is there. So whereas the activity-wise analysis is taken into account, it is found that these Bahujans, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs and minorities, their more participation is in fishing and aquaculture. For scheduled caste, it is 20%. For scheduled tribes, it is 7%. For OBCs, it is 49%. In construction also, it is comparatively better, 19.6% for scheduled caste, 5% for scheduled tribes, and 33% for OBCs. Thus, participation, activity-wise, is concentrated up to towards fishing and aquaculture and construction activities, and other industrial activities and manufacturing activities to that extent are not being represented by the Bahujans, by the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs and minorities. This means that they are prominent in agriculture and allied activities, they are very insignificant in industrial activities, they are prominent in private sector, they are prominent in informal sector. As a result, even in proportion of the population, even their share in total population is higher and greater. They are unable to contribute to the significant extent to the development of India, that is GDP of India is not realizing. It has not been realized. And the reason is ownership is less, both of agriculture, both of industry, both of enterprises, and therefore their participation in growth and development of India is very insignificant. As a result, what is happening? All of us know at this moment also, India is the fastest growing economy. So far as the current GDP rate of India is concerned, it is found that it is about 6.5% per annum. And it is highest in the world. It is highest in the world. And highest in the world because GDP growth rate of world is less than 3%. And GDP growth rate of America and other developed countries is also less than 3%. So India is the highest growing economy. It has realized and achieved 4th position. We are trying for 3rd position. We want to realize sustainable development goals by 2030 and Vikasit Bharat, developed India by 2047. In this backdrop, this is the contribution of Bahujans, that is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs to the development of India. So their contribution is lesser, their population is higher, ownership of assets is lesser, agriculture is lesser, industry ownership is lesser. So their contribution is lesser, but growth is taking place. It is the fastest growing economy. It has realized fourth position in the world, and rate of GDP growth is higher and greater than that of other developed countries. Then how it is affecting? It is affecting that inequalities are growing. Inequalities are growing rapidly and significantly. If we take into consideration the disparities, that is income inequalities and wealth inequalities, because growth is taking place, GDP is increasing, per capita income is increasing. As a result, as per the data available, scheduled caste received only 21% share of national income. And as per the data 2015-16, they got share of wealth only 12.3%. And total scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, especially for scheduled tribes, their share of income received was 34% less than that of the developed or advanced rich strata of the society. And in wealth, the share of scheduled tribes is only 2%, and that of scheduled caste is less than 9%. So it is found that there is a wide disparity so far as income and wealth inequality in India is concerned. The assets, agriculture, industry, business owned by Bahujans, especially scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, is less and insignificant, and therefore their share in development of India, GDP of India, is very less. And the data tells us that only 11.3% assets have been owned by scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and their share in the population is about 27% so far as scheduled caste, scheduled tribes is concerned. This is what the picture of the contribution of Bahujans to the development of India, to the GDP of India, to the national income of India, that is there. Now, what can be a agenda, what can be a policy to increase and improve the contributions of Bahujans to the development of India? Number one, so far as development policy of India is concerned, income wealth inequalities has not been taken into account. Growth taking place, but inequalities are growing. So the major strata of the society, major section of the society is getting very less share in the national income and wealth of India, GDP of India. And smaller strata of the society, they are realizing very larger and bigger share of national income and wealth. More importantly, industry sector, business sector, even agriculture as well, is concentrated in the hands of few families. So there is a wide inequality in possession of assets of India is concerned. And in this backdrop, what can be solutions is to the development of India? Number one, because Constitution is the basic law, Constitution is the universe, it is the primary law. Based on Constitution of India should be there, number one. Number two, after 91 onwards, we are very much rapidly and our economy, industry, business, trade, commerce is dominant and prominent so far as private sector is concerned. So it is necessary to restrict privatization of industry, business, commerce, trade management, so that participation of Bahujans, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities, Muslims, that can increase. Next is that private sector should be monitored, should be regulated. And unless and until private sector is monitored, it is regulated, the participation and the distribution of benefits cannot be justifiable, or may not be justifiable, cannot be justifiable, and therefore control, management, regulation, monitoring of the private sector is necessary. And policy should be formulated in such a way that the participation of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minority, Muslims will involve in the industry sector, in the service sector, so that their contribution can increase. So if in that way efforts are made, policies are formulated, measures are suggested and implemented, remedies are introduced and implemented, then only it is possible to change the scenario of contributions of Bahujans to the development of India. Otherwise, in case of population, they are higher and greater, they are larger and greater, but so far as their contribution to the development is concerned, it is lesser and insignificant. And the reason is that public sector is withering away, government is withering away from the public sector, private sector is dominant, prominent, employment is dominant in informal sector, regular salaried employment is very lesser and insignificant, and more importantly, in the industry sector also, enterprises, ownership of industries, assets is very lesser and insignificant, and these are the responsible causes so far as to the extent required and desirable, Bahujans are not in a position to contribute to the development of India. And it is therefore, when the development policy of India along with the state governments is formulated in the framework of Constitution of India, the redistribution of wealth and income will take place. more involvement in the public sector and formal sector will be there, and regulation, control and monitoring of the private sector is there in favor of Bahujans. If in that direction the efforts are being made, it is possible to improve, it is possible to rectify, it is possible to modify the contributions of Bahujans to the development of India. It is therefore at this moment, prominent and dominant contribution of Bahujans is in agriculture and allied activities. To the extent required and desirable, they are not participating in industry and service sector, and more importantly, they are involved in informal sector and not formal and organized sector. Unless and until we change this scenario, we are not in a position to greatly contribute by the Bahujans to the development of India. The need of the hour is to change this scenario, rectify this scenario, improve this scenario, so that effectively contributions of Bahujans to the development of India will increase. Over to you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir, for detailed description about the contribution of Bahujans to India's development. Yet we see that there is the majority of Maharashtra Bahujans are, in quantity they are more, but in powerful positions they are not seen anywhere. So we hopefully we see in near future that Maharashtra Bahujan will contribute in the power segment also, not only
Yes,
to the, yeah.
you are right. You are
So
right.
thank you very much, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us detailed information about this. And we hope a better future for India and Malnivasi Bahujans. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
sir. Jai Hind, Jai
Thank you.
Malnivasi, Jai
Thank
Bharat
you very
Desam.
much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.